Good evening, everyone. You are listening to Coffee Talk with Samantha and Paul, and I am Samantha Gross, the founder and hostess of Coffee Talk. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Sam. How you doing this evening?
Good. How are you? Do you have your coffee ready?
I do indeed.
You driving?
I'm driving, but I have my coffee so I can stay alert and focused. And
Great.
Yeah.
I had some tea, and I had a couple cups of coffee today, but I've been roaming around and doing all kinds of activities today. So tonight, everyone, is going to be a very special coffee talk, and because we are talking about a subject that I hold dear to my heart, and we are finishing up our series on mind, body, and spirit. And so tonight we are dealing with mental health, which, as most of you know, I am in school studying psychology because of my own mental health issues, and I want to help other people. Well, tonight, Paul, we have a very special guest on the line with us. We have Mrs. Twanette Pinkerton, and Twanette happens to have a PhD in psychology. I've known Twanette since 2015 when I worked for her at Community Support Services. She was like a mentor to me, Paul, and everyone. And Twanette is just an overall amazing lady that's going to share her story and what she's doing to help destigmatize mental health. So, everybody, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Twanette Pinkerton. Twanette, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. How are you? How are you doing tonight, Twanette?
Pretty good. First,
good.
I have to tell you, you're far too kind with the intro about me. But
that's how I feel about you. That's how I've always felt about you.
That's nice. I thank you very much. You're very kind. I do want to clear one thing up because I noticed that you mentioned that I have my PhD in psychology. I almost done with it.
Oh, you're almost done with it. I thought you finished.
No, I have two classes in the dissertation left, and I actually decided to stop at the moment because I realized, and we can go into this regarding everything, is that I realized that I was doing it more for other people and not for myself. So, and what I mean by that is I was trying to, unfortunately, prove to, like, my family that I had a worth. And I had to realize intrinsically that I had my own worth, and no matter amount of education or paper or anything like that is going to mean anything to anybody but myself. So I needed to do it right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, Twanette, are you still at Community Support Services? Last I had known, you were still there. Are you still there?
Actually, I left last February. I moved on to a position at another psychiatric facility in the community. It was a community base. And I was the director of operations there for about 9 months until December when I decided to kind of venture out on my own.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Twanette, please share some of your story with mental health. First, as you know, Paul and I run this Coffee Talk. It's a Christian-based Coffee Talk, and you and I have talked before at work about our faith, Twanette. Go ahead and tell our listeners, which, by the way, guys, I wanted to mention, we have a lot of listeners that are going to be listening to this, so it's going to help a lot of people. I added 5,000 connections between 3 Facebook pages today. Can you believe that, everyone? 5,000 connections have reached out to Coffee Talk. So it's between 3 Facebook pages, so I wanted to mention that. So this is going to help a lot of people. But Twanette, go ahead and share your story with mental health. Tell us a little bit about you and your story and how you got into mental health.
Yeah. I go into this a little bit in my podcast that I actually just uploaded today.
Yeah, tell us about that too.
Yeah, well,
and we'll get to that.
Yeah. I actually grew up in a household of 2 teenage parents, and unfortunately they were unprepared to be parents, and I ended up resulting with a lot of trauma from my childhood, which resulted in some depression and anxiety, and during my teenage years, I really found myself in a lot of despair and constantly wanting reprieve from life in general. And even though I was faithful and believed in God and, Christ is my Savior to this day, because of all of that stuff, that's all I ever really thought about. So for probably 2 years of my teenage life, I tried to commit suicide repeatedly until I ended up in the hospital for a week.
So did I'm sorry. So did you feel kind of like just the concept of you did not feel a sense of self-worth, or you did not have a foundation that you can fall back on, or what was it? Was kind of like you're driving?
I think it was
suicidal. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no. I think it was an amalgamation of things. One, I didn't feel any worth other than being a housekeeper for my household. I wasn't ever included in anything family-wise except for taking care of the household. Right. And then there was mental abuse and physical abuse, and I just was internally in so much pain that I wanted out of it in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. Yeah, understandable.
So that's kind of the reasoning I had done that. But when I ended up in the hospital, initially I was diagnosed as bipolar and put on a medication. It's been so long ago, honestly, because now I'm in my 40s. But I think it was Librium or lithium. I can't remember which one.
Lithium normally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The problem was that I wasn't bipolar. Severely depressed, yes, but not. Right. My health started to deteriorate. My pulse was out of whack. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was just like a hot mess. And my psychiatrist that I saw at the time never really talked about any of my issues. He would tell me about his other patients and their diagnosis and their prognosis. And I would sit there and think to myself, holy mother of pearl, I felt bad for all of these children because after the situation, I had kind of I don't want to call it lightning. Well, yeah, kind of. I had kind of a feeling that, God was always there for me. It didn't matter if my family was. It didn't matter if they cared or not about me. God did. I was God's child. So I was important in that extent. And I felt horrified for the teenagers that didn't come to that realization themselves and want to continue on. So that's when I decided that I wanted to go into psychology. And actually went to school and got my undergrad degree in psychology.
Can I ask you real quick here, since you had teenage parents, were they still church going folks, so to speak, or how were you introduced? Since it seems like there was no real foundation within the family itself, how was it that God was introduced to you?
Oddly enough, and I do to this day, I don't talk to my parents anymore, and I haven't for a decade with one of them actually, but I thank God every day that He did have me in that family because they were Christians or like to tout themselves as such. So we did go to church all the time, and we actually church hopped a lot, and most of the time went to churches that were very preached a lot of revelation and the end time. Right. So that really played into my anxiety.
Yeah, nothing like having fire and brimstone thrown at you every Wednesday or Saturday, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also were just very legalistic in the extent that they would say that they beat us because they loved us. That was, spare the rod, spoil the child. I heard that all the time.
Yeah, but and that's where it gets kind of dangerous. And exposed to those types of people as well, and that's the problem. Is that a lot of people they'll take any passage out of the Bible and you can warp it and take it out of context. Heck, the devil did that when he with Jesus. He would say hey, you can jump off this mountain here, and the angels will ensure that you don't step your foot upon, will not, stub your foot on a stone or whatever. And, you'll find that in, I believe it's in Psalms, but it's like, at the same time, though, Jesus has also said that you will not tempt the Lord your God, So that is unfortunate because so many people can take like one small passage of the Bible and they can twist it any which way. And that's one of the warnings that you can find in the Bible itself. Even Christ says, look, the devil will take the Word of God and twist it around. And that's where you have to have it all within context. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Oh, my gosh. I'm so sorry you went through that.
I am too.
Oh,
yeah.
my gosh.
I can understand and empathize with you, Twanette. I went through physical abuse from my father and sexual abuse from my father. And it's the most worst feeling that I think I've ever gone through, which I'll explain later. But yeah, I completely empathize with that, Twanette.
Yeah, that's initially what led me on my journey into mental health. And oddly enough, and this is some stuff I've been writing about, is that I went to school. They never taught us really the prevalence of mental illness, symptomatology, yes, that kind of stuff. And then I started in community health and case management and just was like blown away at the need and the lack of funding and the lack of support. And as I grew in my career, I started getting treatment myself. I mean, I always did kind of on and off. As an adult, I would have therapy. I'd be in and out of therapy. I'd go for, episodically and then think I was fine, which I'm sure Samantha can identify with as well, because I think anyone, and I've seen this historically in my career, is that when people start feeling better, you think you don't need the treatment. You think you don't need the medication. You don't think you will, but it's not gone. It's a medical condition.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And for me, for years, like even the doctors that we both have mutual friends with, Twanette, have diagnosed me as bipolar. And my current doctor actually said, no, Sam, I don't believe it's bipolar. It's more PTSD, ADHD, and depression and anxiety. So I've been battling with the misdiagnosis for years, since 2008, of bipolar, where all these other doctors are now saying, no, it's not bipolar that you have. You have more ADHD, PTSD from the abuse and stuff of that. But you're right, Twanette, especially when I started feeling better there for a while in 2016, 2017, I realize now that I was more symptomatic than I was feeling good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's hard sometimes, especially when you're in it, even though you're educated in it, sometimes it's hard to recognize that.
Yeah.
Because I remember I have a lot of medical issues that have kind of stemmed from being in that heightened fight or flight state in the cortisol creation for, decades as a child. And so when I started seeing doctors, they would try to figure out what was wrong with me. And some of them, because I'd be in so much pain and I'd come in crying, they'd tell me I was depressed. And I didn't understand that was part of it all kind of together at the time until I was going to Cleveland Clinic for a pain rehabilitation program. And the doctor looked at me and he says, you do realize that you have severe depression. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I work in the mental health field. I would know if I'm depressed.
Right.
And he's like, are you serious? And I just started sobbing.
Oh,
and
wow.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I was angry and I hid behind my anger. And anger is a symptom of depression too. So, that was when I actually started, consistently seeking treatment, not just in therapy, but as medication management.
Right.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, it's something. It's because it's like therapy is one thing. Like I'll see my therapist weekly, but if I don't see my doctor every 4 to 6 weeks, I feel like I miss her because so much goes on, and she just gives me that re-encouragement. Sam, you're seeing therapy. You're also doing your meds every day, and it's like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing goes along with the other.
Yeah, definitely. It is all like a Rubik's Cube, and I kind of use that as an analogy for a lot of things in my life. But, life, health, mental and physical, I really feel it's completely intertwined and that we really need to focus on integrated care.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's part of the reason I decided to kind of go my own way and start doing some things like standing up and talking about it and advocating, because I just really felt like, although I worked in the mental health field and I felt as a professional I advocated for people with mental illness, to some extent I feel now like I was being hypocritical because I was hiding my own mental health issues from everyone because I still saw the stigma so much. I didn't want to be taken as not a professional, which is hypocritical.
And did you ever find that
we all do it though?
And did you find that when working with patients or whatnot, it's kind of difficult to remove like your self-act a bit? Like you don't want to get too engaged just for fear that it'll
your boundaries are a big issue. Boundaries are a big issue.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and Twanette knows with me. Twanette, you'll remember with me when I worked at Community Support Services, for me, working with the clients was very therapeutic to me, and I kind of like mothered them instead of trying to really let them grow and recover. I tried to do it for them, and I went above and beyond the steps, sometimes out of boundaries, like contacting doctors I shouldn't have been doing. Yeah. But I was trying to help the clients the only way I knew how at that time.
Right.
And I think that the mental health, I'm sure they miss you at CSS, the clients, Twanette, but tell us about what you're doing now. Tell us about Emotional Dinosaur that you started in your podcast.
And I got to know also, how did you come up with a name for that too? How did
you come up with it? It's really neat.
So when I left my last position as a director of operations at a psych practice, I started to think, what can I do on my own? I know, and I only know this because of years of therapy, that I am not stupid. I used to think because of the abuse and everything that people would tell me I was smart, but I would never believe it. So I know that I have skills and I know that I have talents, and I feel that they're all God-driven and God, breathed. So I started to think, what could I do with those things on my own to not only, obviously provide some kind of career for myself, but to help people in the way that I've always wanted to throughout my career. So I decided, to kind of research podcasts. I know there are some mental health podcasts out there, but there isn't an overabundance. My niece, who is actually the co-host, is living with me. She moved in with me last year. She's 20, and because so many things with mental illness are generational and they're genetic components and all sorts of stuff, my niece also struggles with depression and anxiety and PTSD from sexual abuse as well. And so, her and I were talking about creating stuff together because she's very creative and artistic as well. And she loves dinosaurs. So I started thinking about this. She loves dinosaurs.
Oh, wow.
So I started thinking about this, and I thought, okay, so dinosaurs, and it just came to me, and I really do feel like it was God giving me this title, but I thought, how neat would it be? We're talking about our emotions. We're talking about the dinosaurs that Lindsay loves, but we're also talking about the fact that to this day, in the 21st century, we still have an archaic outlook of mental illness. And so we want people to stop being an emotional dinosaur. Stop looking at things in this arcane way that's outdated. We don't use the same type of treatment anymore. Granted, we're a lot more sophisticated, but our viewpoints still are not where they should be. So people, I cannot tell you how many times, and even professionals they have made comments to me about individuals diagnosed with severe persistent mental illness not being intelligent.
Wow.
I find it offensive.
Yeah, I find that offensive too. People that would do that.
Yeah, I find it offensive and completely ignorant because one of the things I relate in my initial episode is that throughout my career, I've worked with people that are so intelligent and so creative. I had one person I worked with back when I was just out of my bachelor's degree that she had 3 completed PhDs and had several patents through a well-known company. I mean, she was so smart and intelligent. I'm like, you know, it's sad for me to look at things that way. So anyway, that's kind of how the emotional dinosaur came about. So when we do the podcast, at least the initial one, I kind of talked about my career choice and path and my own history. And then each episode, Lindsay is going to do a dinosaur fact.
Awesome.
I have to say what's brilliant about that title, Twanette, is it's a reminder of what not to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Our tagline is grow up or grow extinct.
Right.
Yeah, so yes, I totally agree. It was like...
Yeah, it's brilliant. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's where we're heading with that. Eventually, our hope is to create some app-based products as well, but we've just been working the last few months on getting everything together and integrated for the podcast first.
Wow. So what are the episodes that you're going to do on the podcast, right? Like, what are some of the things that you want people to know about Emotional Dinosaur and what you're going to be talking about?
Okay. So we actually did a Survey Monkey of a lot of millennials prior to even starting thinking about topics and thinking about the length and all that kind of stuff. And consistently, millennials wanted something that was like no longer than 30 minutes, so they wanted a quick information dump. And a lot of them wanted coping skills. And that didn't really surprise me because my niece, being in college, she would call me all the time with issues she was having with friends. And so many of them themselves had mental health issues. And it was like, we need to get information and resources to people. So that's what we're focused on. We're creating education topics on our website, and through the podcast, we're not only going to do education on like coping skills and our own journeys and how we respond to that, but also our family members. In particular, I think all the time of my own husband, not the poor man, he's a great man, but he has been with me for over 25 years. And sometimes
you have a wonderful son, too.
Yeah, and I feel really bad for him because I know he didn't understand mental illness. And for years before I properly got treated and started really working on getting my mental health in check, it was really difficult for him because a lot of the times he didn't know what was going to trigger me, or I would go into fits of depression and just be in bed all weekend. I would go to work and I would say, that's fine, but then I'd come home for the weekend and I wouldn't move, and I just know that was very hard on him. So, family journeys as well, and then because of being in the field for over 20 years, I have a lot of connections to people who do different things. So we're going to have a dietitian on that talks about mental health and your eating habits and how it affects your energy and your mental clarity and all those kind of things. I have some people that I've worked with that are nurses, but also yoga instructors and Reiki instructors. So we're going to have them talk about how that can help with coping with stressors and detoxifying your life and those type of things. And my hope is to get on other professionals too for just brief snippets on, education on what symptomatology is and where they can help get treatment and things of that nature.
Excellent.
Yes. Wow. That sounds amazing, Twanette. That is going to be, I'm glad that I'm in your community and that, like, when I decided to donate to your community, for Coffee Talk for Paul and I when we decided that we were going to donate to Emotional Dinosaur. I see where you're going with it, and I believe so strongly in helping to stop end stigma. I think it's just wonderful what you're doing, Twanette. I am so proud of you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you both for your support in both ways. Because, yeah, I'm really super excited about it, too. I think that now is the time for us to stand together and defy the ignorance of what's going on and kind of just be more supportive for one another rather than,
than judge.
Yes.
Yes. And honestly, I'm not going to bring up the past, but when you said about flight, that's kind of, and I've always wanted to apologize to you, so now I'm going to apologize to my old supervisor publicly, Twanette, because I went through something, and there, as you know, there's two sides to every story, but I'm not going into detail, but for my part, I'm sorry that I kind of flighted on you. I just did not know how to handle the situation at the time. And I knew my voice at that time would not be heard because of the other person's side, and I flighted. And I've always wanted to apologize to you for that, but I've learned how to decompartmentalize, and my own therapist has taught me those boundaries that you had always mentioned and taught me how to deal with coping situations in the past couple of years. So I'm just glad that you and I, Twanette, that we're friends and that we both see on the same agreement that if more mental health professionals would stop being so judgmental and come together to end truly the stigma that surrounds mental health, I really think more people would survive. Because I think a lot of, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think a lot of people that have the mental health issues that will commit trauma or commit suicide or they have no one to reach out to, or they feel ashamed to reach out because it is so stigmatized.
I see ashamed in a lot, and I can only tell you that from working with my niece during her 2 years away at college. And her contacted me about her friends in crisis a lot. That yes, people are ashamed to get treatment.
Yeah.
Do they also fear that they're just going to be labeled and almost feel like lab rats at that point as well, or?
Some people.
Some people probably do. But I didn't see that being the majority of the issue. A lot of the young adults would just express concerns that their parents didn't understand. Their parents their father or mother were in the medical field, but they didn't feel like this was legitimate, and so.
Right.
Which is sad.
It is sad. It's very sad. But, well, Paul, do you have any more questions?
Yeah,
Twanette?
So then this is kind of interesting.
Go ahead.
Because this is not just with our Coffee Talk here, but just in previous Coffee Talks and with other guests we've had. It seems to be a common theme, and the theme seems to be the pain that we've experienced in the past has been like dare I say this, an excellent teacher for us. And looking back, as awful as what you've gone through, I hate to say this, but is it almost like, are you sort of kind of glad you went through that, in the sense that because you survived through that, now you can be like a light to others now and help them? Okay.
Yes, you're definitely...
Does that make sense? Okay, I'm not alone in my thoughts here, because it's like I'm beginning to see a pattern here with all of our guests, Sam, and again, I'm not compartmentalizing here or to forgive me, but I'm just saying there's something important about all of this that's happening here, just like, all previous Coffee Talks, and again, this is just stuff that I just, just my background, I just stumbled into this. I'm not a pastor or anybody. I'm an engineer, for God's sakes, and a keyboardist in a band. All right, so it's like, but I am a Christian though, and I've been awakened to a lot of this, and it seems that there is something important about pain that we go through, and that the spiritual world looks at differently than we do. We all try to avoid it, and I get that, and that's something that I think we should probably try to avoid, just because, pain hurts. But somehow, if it's unavoidable, if can somehow be a teacher, if God is there to help us through it somehow, there's glory to be found later, hopefully even in this life. And it sounds like you tapped into that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Paul. I can tell you that I don't feel that you're minimizing any of my experience, so don't be concerned about that at all. But, you know, when I was younger and just kind of trapped in it, in the pain, I wanted just out of it. And I can tell you, and I know we don't have time now, but I definitely feel that God in Christ was always with me and always carrying me and keeping me strong. And now that I am in my point in my life, am I perfect? Heck no. No. I'll never be perfect. But
neither am I.
I feel that every day I'm growing and I am evolving, and that I feel that everything happened to me for a reason, and that I actually do, even nightly, I tell my niece this, that I nightly pray for all of my family. Even though I don't talk to them, I pray that they're happy and healthy, and I actually thank God, not just that I was with them to learn about Him, even though some of the stuff was erroneous, but that I wouldn't be who I am today without that experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because it made me think of one last thing to tell you. I'm actually working on a book right now as well. It's called
congratulations.
Thank you. It's called Becoming Boudica. And interestingly enough, back when I started in the field, when I was in my early 20s, I went on a educational trip with some of the psychiatrists and team that I worked with at Community Support Services. It was for cognitive behavioral therapy. And so we were away on this trip, and the psychiatrist said to me that I reminded him of Boudica. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. Can you explain to me, please? So he explained to me that she was a British warrior queen that unified her people to rebel against the Roman Empire, and that she did this after the Roman Empire tortured her people and raped her daughters and all of this kind of stuff. And I was just really confused, because I'm like, I'm not that strong person. What are you talking about? I'm not like this person that's going to go out and gather people and be like, let's go to war and let's stand up for ourselves and kind of thing. It just didn't make sense to me. He did explain too that I'm a tall girl, and I've always been not huge. I've gained weight since I've had some medical problems, but I've always just been a bigger statured person. And he said that she was as well. So I just kind of threw it in the back of my mind, thinking that he attributed that quality, her physique, to me, that I was this tall kind of, person, and that nothing else was right, that I wasn't this leader, I wasn't this person. But as I've been going through therapy and as I've been going through my life, I started to realize that things that I've done, whether I've intended them or not, I feel like God has used me in some ways to be a leader. And that he could see, that this doctor, the psychiatrist I worked with back then, could see who I was more than I could see who I was then.
Yeah, I agree with you, Twanette. And to go with that, and about being a leader, like I said, I have always looked up to you since the time I've met you, Twanette. I mean, I've given you numerous Catch the Spirit awards. You used to give them to me, too. And I see it in you. You have the compassion, the empathy, the love, and the caring nature for people to be a leader. And that's what I've always said about community support services. Even though we used to have our own quirks, and we were all getting treated for something, the employees, the clients, the coworkers, you name it, the doctors, we all had our own thing. Well, you, Twanette, just were this light. You were this shining light at Community Support Services, and I always wanted to just be like Twanette. Twanette and I, Paul, were on the health and wellness team, and she was the integrated manager.
Right.
And people shined through Twanette. Everybody, every recovery specialist, every case manager I've ever met or have stayed in contact with, the doctors, the case managers, have all said what a light Twanette was. And she was, Paul. She's a light. And Twanette, honestly, I would used to compliment you at times, and sometimes you'd compliment me and I'd get offended, and then you would get offended. But I am so glad that you're now writing a book and seeing that you really are a leader deep down inside. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that you're now seeing this, because that's the one thing I think you didn't see. I didn't notice that you noticed when I worked with you. And I'm sure, and like what you noticed, like with me, I had boundary issues and stuff, and I'm working on that. It's amazing how in the mental health field and how in life in general that the years, they do change people, because you come to a realization of things and you start seeing things within therapy and within treatment that other people saw that you were so blinded to at the fact at that time. You didn't see it, but other people could see it, and then you finally come together and the whole picture shows.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you again so much, Sam, and I am actually glad to hear I tried my best. I always try my best.
You always did wonderful, Twanette.
How you did. Be treated, so I'm glad to hear that you felt that way.
Yeah, I always had nothing but love for you. Even at one bitter time, I had nothing but love for you. I'm just so glad that we got to reconnect again, Twanette, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and be friends, and we can have that cup of tea and do friend stuff now finally, and we both believe in the same different thing. So I'm glad that you wanted to come on our show tonight, that we rekindled that connection. I'm thankful for this. It's God ordained.
Yes, I thank you both.
Awesome.
So yeah, cool. Well, Paul, if you don't have any more questions, that's going to wrap up our show tonight. We did great.
Yes, I can feel it. It's good.
Yeah, it's very good, guys. And Twanette, please tell our listeners what your website is, what the Emotional Dinosaur website is. I will post it on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, but tell us what it is.
Yeah, it's actually just emotionaldinosaur.com, easy to remember. And all of our links to all of our social media are on there for Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And at the funny side, I'm actually going out of the country later this week. And Lindsay had an awesome idea for social media. This is just kind of shared with you guys, but she suggested we got a plastic dinosaur, and she painted a pair of glasses that match my glasses, and I'm taking it with me to take pictures for Instagram, so it should be pretty fun.
Great.
That's going to be great. That's an awesome idea.
Kind of like a mascot, sort of?
Yes.
Awesome. I love it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, have a wonderful, blessed time. Twanette, please call me when you get back. We'll have tea. And
thank you, guys.
And I thank you for being on the show. Thank you. Okay. And Paul, I will talk to you tomorrow.
Yep. We'll catch up later. Sounds good. Twanette, thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Good night, everybody.